Let's see if I get disturbed. I'm going to try to do the video here. I'm in a place where there could be people passing, coming, and going. So first of all, the Zohar parsha Pinchos says that the Shekhinah, the feminine, divine, indwelling presence of Hashem, is at the end of the 10 spheros. Spheros being the divine attributes. She is also called Yamsuf, which could sound like the end of the sea. She's the completion of the upper beings and the lower beings. She's the gate by which one has to enter for all the wisdom and for every appellation, and Yud and He and Vav and He, Hashem's name, for entering into each and every sphere. She's the knowledge of everything, and without her, no creature has permission to look into any knowledge that's in the world. I want to share from Francesca Psychology on Instagram, Francesca Psychology. Paradoxically, the people who see themselves as the most moral or quote-unquote good often carry the largest repressed shadows. The shadow refers to the parts of ourselves we've learned to deny or disown, qualities like anger, selfishness, envy, or even harm. When someone builds an idealized image of themselves, anything that becomes threatening, so those traits are repressed instead of integrated, and people with rigid idealized self-concepts tend to have less psychological flexibility. I think someone was flushing the toilet in the background. They struggle to tolerate mistakes, nuance, and contradiction within themselves. I'm not in a bathroom. I'm just probably near a room that has an open door of a bathroom. People with rigid, idealized self-concepts tend to have less psychological flexibility. They struggle to tolerate mistakes, nuance, and contradiction within themselves. As a result, they minimize, deny responsibility, and struggle to empathize because acknowledging another person's pain would feel like an attack on their idealized identity. This is why people with a more nuanced self-concept are often more compassionate and grounded. They know they're capable of both good and bad, so they don't need to protect an image at all costs. When you can hold your own complexity, you paradoxically become more genuinely quote-unquote good. I wanted to share in a 12-step program specifically on the topic of codependency, basically seeking validation from the outside. One might make decisions without regard to the consequences, and one might give up truthing to gain the approval of others or avoid change. But when one is recovering and basically finding self-validation, especially through a higher power, we can ask that higher power for guidance and consider possible consequences before making decisions, and we can also stand in our own truth, whether others approve or not, even if it means making difficult changes in our lives. And then going to a 12-step meeting about, actually going to two, to learn more about, these ideas. So in terms of if I'm being my own self, I'm not looking for validation outside, I really have to balance that inspiration and realism, because now I'm responsible not for outsourcing either. No one's going to be my reality check, and no one's going to be my source of inspiration. So I have to balance both inspiration drive and the realism drive. And intuition, which might be overused when we try to know things that are outside of our domain, has to be balanced also with self-centeredness. Some people say self-centeredness is not a good thing, but actually to see, when I say self-centeredness here, I'm talking about seeing out of your own eyes while also maintaining connection. It's a balance. And then this idea of no one's really a helpless victim, not me, not anyone else. So basically when we come from the fear of abandonment, we might let people figure things out for us, or we might figure things out for other people, but actually we can each learn from our own mistakes. If we make a mistake, we could try. And I found fire meditation really helps, because sometimes consciousness could be unnerving and very intense. And so this idea of imagining that you're the fire, you're fire, and then desires come and go, they pass, they're fires, and they come in and out, and then exertions come and go, and then feelings come and go in the fire. It could be very unnerving to be conscious when you come online, when you're welcomed into the world. And then there's got to be the sense of, when we're talking about the void, right? We fill the void. So let's say we want the validation from outside. We want to fill it up with love from a higher power. Somebody on the outside is not going to be a higher power. They're just a human being. So without a wound, because the wound is when the void is not full. So the wound is in other words, where we might say it's a gap, and it's unfilled, and then we might fill it up with grief. Loss might bring it to the loss might bring grief into the wounds, and then fear, and then anger, and it's basically we're holding on to something that's not really there, but rather we could fill it up with love from the higher power, and I feel like this is when we start to have selective access about what gets in and what we put out, and we start to want our own cup to be full. And it's like this reality check on whether our own cup is going to be full or we're filling someone else's cup, and we start to have that private inner world just for ourselves, being our own person. We don't know what anyone is. We can really have that choice about how we want to bridge a gap with healthy boundaries. And sometimes it's about also, like, in terms of filling each other's cup and getting our cup filled, it's about wanting to feel heard and understood, and also like understanding and hearing others. So there's, in a lot of 12-step programs, there's a recommendation to do outreach calls, and this is how we also, learn to hear and understand each other. In terms of this agency and personal power that comes, one starts to make changes that we want to improve our life. When we're making changes, we get to start being in flow, in go mode, pushing through machine style motion. It's like I'm thinking of my own masculinity. We would say, like, to balance the femininity. The femininity might be the inside self, which is when we might have had, it comes from trust. So that would be the life that previous me had made for me. Trusting her in the life she made me is a passionate relationship. That's when we start to self-trust. The version of me like 10 minutes ago was like the person I could imagine now as a wife, the one who like prepared my lunch for me. And so when we're looking at agency and personal power, we start to surrender. We start to surrender, but we also don't come. So when we're making the changes with our personal power, it's like we also want to surrender. We don't want to overschedule, overdo. Again, because we're not looking for validation from the outside. We're looking to fill up our own cup. And the comment about the wife, being our own wife, whether you're married, not, man, woman, it's let's say in those hard moments, you just say, focus on me. Who do you focus on? So I think of my body, my inner body telling me, I like rhythmic movements, I like music, I like the sunshine, I like that you're nice to me. And we're going to have one more, I'm going to share a little bit more from one other 12-step meeting, where I was thinking about, feeling the grief of that. I mentioned the, feeling the grief of another toilet flush coming from the other room. Feeling the grief of the past Shayna, the fact that, and then in the void. So the void could be a sacred growing ground, a burial ground, where it is a place of nothingness. It's a space. Even if it feels empty and lonely inside, it's actually where things arise. So let's say the story that I had where I'm not the chosen one, the scapegoat, the band-aid, the codependent relationships. I think it comes from my sisters. So it's not just being unchosen, it's being the not chosen one. My sister's chosen instead. And so that was in the void. It was a story that I could get out of the void, and then it's some new story could come. So also fear of being in the pit forever, basically that it will feel like a pit of despair to be alone. So that's can cause compulsive attachment behavior. But when I feel the grief that no one loved her before she died, this previous Shayna, I feel like I get to honor her memory and have this interior orientation. I don't want to disappear before I was loved. So slowing down, resting, not rushing and planning, and realizing that I'm safe and valid and exist. And I'm going to stop here and wish you all the best. Have a lot of clarity and love and free love coming in from all directions. May you feel supported. May we all feel supported. May we feel also things are on our terms. May we have new stories. May we grow beautiful new realities from the void.